Hello, my name's Niranjan, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast. Learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today is episode number 124, and I had a delightful and joyful conversation with R. Scott Edwards, who's currently retired, and his focus is on podcasting and giving back and entertaining others while filling his day. He continues to produce comedy shows for charities and produces and directs podcasts for the outside client, and to take a special care to his bride of 25 years. Live in Sacramento, California, currently a podcaster, Standup Comedy, your host and MC, Comedy Appeteaser, or Amazing Adventure, and the Confused Ork in Me are just some of the platforms that he runs his comedy and joyful experiences that he wants to share with the world. So I trust that you will gain some laughter and some nuggets of wisdom from the conversation I had with R. Scott Edwards. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome to Scott. How are you, Scott?
Hi, good morning. It's exciting to be here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, and I'm kind of not expecting, but inevitable that we're going to have some laughs along the way in this delightful conversation. So thank you.
Oh no, it's exciting for me. We gotta definitely have some laughs.
Yes, it seems to be it seems to be part of your being, I must
Well,
say.
I try to live a fun life. I decided at an early age that no one knows how long we'll be on this earth, and you want to enjoy yourself as you go. And as other people were working hard and saving money, I was out spending it and having a blast.
Isn't that the objective, though? Really?
Well, you wouldn't believe how many of my friends, and I'm older now, the snow on the roof, and they work enslaved and were not really happy while they were working enslaving, and then they retired, and they may have more money than me or more security, but they are worn out. They don't now. They're too old to really have the fun that I was able to have in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, and still have. I think it's important to enjoy life as you go. I mean, of course, you don't want to be stupid and crazy and never go into debt for anything. But, when I would come into a large amount of money, I would take at least half of it and do something crazy fun. I've chartered Lear jets, I've rented tour buses, I chartered a plane once and flew to Napa just to have lunch, just crazy stuff. But it was fun.
That's right. That's right. So with the courageous and bold path that you've led throughout a multitude of different careers,
Yes.
what do you believe about yourself? And do you feel it defines who Scott is here today having this conversation with me?
Well, let's give your audience the proper introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, a lifelong entrepreneur with all kinds of crazy adventures, it's Scott Edwards. Thank you. Thank you. Down and back. Sit down, sit down. It's not that big a deal. I'm so excited to be on the podcast with you and talk about this crazy entrepreneurial life I've had. And I think that to answer your question, it is a personality type. You know how there's A personalities and B and C, and then it goes on down the line. I'm definitely an A personality. I'm sure your audience can tell I'm shy and reserved.
Very, yes, absolutely. Echoes real loud. Uh-huh.
Yes. And it's interesting because you had Nico on a few shows back, who was a lifelong salesman, and like 10 years anyway, at top of his game in sales. And I would say that my personality was focused on sales, which there's always money in. I always worked on commission because I could do better kind of managing and working for myself than just for a
Mhm.
salary, and but also customer service. It
Yeah,
was always important to me to take care of the customers because that's what takes care of you financially. So
sure.
whether I owned a restaurant, an art gallery, a comedy club, a submarine, an insurance agency, all these different things. My first company when I was 17 was a small construction company. It was all about the sale, but then the customer service, and that's what made me a success.
Right. Right.
I
So
mastered my craft.
you did that, but how do you define that craft in who you are today?
Well, I think that uh, the best term, of course, is entrepreneur. And I think the definition is that an entrepreneur is confident, not afraid to take risk, understands that failures are the stepping stones to success. I have failed many times,
Mhm.
but that led to even more successes. So it is that kind of crazy balance of hard work. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. Whatever you're going to do, whatever your chosen career niche is, if you don't put in the work, you can't succeed.
Exactly.
And even though I've had my ups and downs through my life, I always worked hard, and that I think has its value and its rewards.
And with that, perhaps you learned early on. I mean, I did too, even though I've been through the corporate experiences myself. It leaned in really quickly for me of what does my career path or work in life, or what does that look like for me? And I imagine that happened really quickly for you in terms of owning
Well,
businesses, developing in them, and continuing
yeah,
that through that
I,
entrepreneurial thread.
yeah, Naranjan, I think that it's so true that our existence, our life, it helps mold us and determine who and what we're going to be. In my
Hmm.
case, my parents got divorced when I was 10, and I was put to work pretty early, like 12, 13, paper routes, mowing lawns, to help my mom get through each and every month and year. And um, so I had to kind of mature, maybe grow up a little faster. I had to develop a work ethic because if not, um, we weren't going to survive as a family, and I personally would not have a direction. I think I took the childhood angst and uncertainty and decided to make that my, you know, driving factor to build my work ethic. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
That I by working hard, one, you're not thinking about the problems you might have in your life, and two, the rewards of working hard help those problems seem easier.
Yeah. What was the tipping point for you in feeling the drive, the desire, the need to work hard, work hard, work hard to survive, support, and to I'm doing this to thrive. Like those basic needs are all taken care of and they're done, to now I can go and have fun and do all the crazy, adventurous, and big things that I want to experience. What was that tipping
Yeah,
point for you?
it's interesting. You do have to find a balance. My first couple companies, the first one at 17, as I mentioned, small construction company, kept it for a few years, brought in some friends, and then I sold out once I felt, I had outgrown
Yep.
it. But that company is still being operated today by one of my original high school partners
Nice.
and his kids. My next company was fun, but it was more a an opportunity opened up. I was a portable DJ. I'm going to age myself here. We were spinning disco records and doing weddings and bar mitzvahs and parties for schools. And we were portable DJs doing music shows. And this was way before, DJing was even a thing. But it was something that I heard could make money, and so I gave it a shot, and it worked. But I think the turning point, and you and I talked about this previously,
Mm-hmm.
is that I was a young man in my early 20s. I was 23. I was selling life insurance, which is not, I told you my basis is in sales, and I was successful. But when you're 23, you're not thinking about death. You're not thinking about the rewards of death. And so it was not a happy job. I didn't enjoy it. I was good at it, but I was not engaged with the product. You know what I mean? I was just a job. And I was on vacation, and my dad, who had a great sense of humor, said, "Hey, you got to go to this place. There's this little club right next to UCLA in Westwood, California. It's called the Comedy Store." And he just thought it was the greatest thing. So I went by with my then girlfriend, soon to be wife, soon to be ex-wife, and we saw, we saw George Wallace, Sandra Bernhardt, and Dave Coulier. And I made friends with Dave Coulier, and I was asking, "Wow, this is so great. I've never seen this." And people have to understand, stand-up comedy was not an acceptable entertainment choice back in those days. It was really kind of new. In fact, early stand-up comedy through the 50s and 60s and 70s was more of an extra. It was added on TV shows, and there was a lot of stand-up comedy in strip clubs and bad bars, right? Well, Comedy Store and the Improv and the Ice House helped bring it out a little bit. And on the drive back to Sacramento, I said, "Man, I got to make this work. This is something that's fun. It's something I can do." And so I asked a lot of questions. I talked to business owners, waitresses, comics, researched the industry, which is key for anybody that wants to go into something. Always do your research. And then again, as an entrepreneur, went bankrupt through caution to the wind. I had no money. I negotiated the free use of a banquet room in a restaurant, and I opened up my comedy club, Laughs Unlimited, in August of 1980, and it was still such a new industry. My full-time comedy club was the 12th in the entire country. There was only 12 in the whole country.
Wow.
And it was still that new an experience and entertainment format. Now, of course, 6 years later, all the discos became comedy clubs, and there were, several in every town. But in 1980, it was still a really new art form. Anyway, I struggled and lost money for about 6 months, and then I kind of turned it around, and didn't have any employees, didn't have any lease. My only nut was taking care of the entertainers, and I made it work. And by 2.5 years later, I opened up my own big showroom, and then the rest was history. I ended up building up to a chain of 3 comedy clubs, and then the success of and the money of the 80s allowed me then to have the fun. I opened a couple restaurants. I had a couple art galleries. I bought a beach shack in Hawaii. I even built a submarine and launched it in Monterey Bay. So I was able to I worked hard. I struggled in the beginning, but I found success, and then I turned that success into the adventures that you and I were just talking about. Art galleries aren't great money makers. Restaurants are always losers. I mean, I did okay, but they could be really challenging.
Sure.
Everyone be careful going into the restaurant business. But, buying a submarine and launching a tourist submarine in Monterey, I lost my butt on that, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
But it was fun. It was different. And how many people can say they owned a submarine?
Right. That's right. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
getting back to the point, if you work hard and you focus on that work and dedicate yourself, and you're not afraid of the risk of the failures, because I made a lot of mistakes. I was 24 years old
Mm.
when I opened my first comedy club. And it was, you just have to have faith in yourself and the confidence that, you know, yeah, I'll make mistakes, but I'll get through it. Is that too vague? Is that too weird?
No, it's perfect because ultimately at 24 years old, that's where we're at. Perhaps we
Right,
have
right.
more gumption and more drive to be able to make big, bold decisions and moves in life. Maybe
And I
just
think
because we're so green, we do it.
But
But
and I think we have less to lose. You know, I mean, I didn't end up getting married briefly and then divorced really quickly. It was a big mistake, but I got a wonderful son out of it. But the when I was 24 and I was doing this and I was mentioning I was losing money. I mean, I didn't have a family to support. I didn't own a home. I didn't even have a car payment. I was driving some junker, and so I had less to risk. I think is also part of it.
yeah,
Um, it still was a risk.
sure.
I could have, I'd already gone bankrupt. I couldn't lose any more money,
Yeah,
but it was, I had to make it work.
yeah,
There was that focus, that dedication. And again, that I keep repeating myself, the hard work that has to be put in that will help you towards success.
yeah, exactly. I feel that even though a couple of decades on, moving for individuals in their 40s, 50s, even older, and they want to make a change in their life, perhaps the same philosophy is still very prevalent in they become much bolder. And yes, the financial risks and security risks that have been built over the decades is still applicable, but there's this innate sense of just do it. Because on the
Well,
flip
Nike would
side of
like to
that,
hear that.
exactly. But on the flip side of that, we see the path on the other side getting shorter. So then that same philosophy often takes place of just do it. Like it doesn't
Right.
really matter that much anymore. I mean, we hear the analogy of people who soften, if you will, as age creeps in, as our time on this planet creeps in. We soften and there's less hardness in how we move through life, relationships, and all that. So, is that a fair statement in maybe what you've experienced from the past to maybe where you're at now? Is it the same?
Well, yes and no. So in 2001, after 21 years of running these comedy clubs and having so many amazing experiences, I produced three TV series and did large concerts with Jerry Seinfeld and Jay Leno. And I felt like I'd done as much as I could in that industry, and comedy was changing a bit and going into the 2000s. So I sold, and I was able to take the money from that and get myself out of debt, and also um, sit back. Some people might call it retirement, but I was 44, so it wasn't really, 44, 45. So it wasn't really retirement. But I felt it was time for a change. But I think and then I went into a couple new adventures. I opened up my own travel agency. Ended up failing because of 9/11. They
Mm,
stopped people stopped traveling. All the commissions went away. But what was interesting to what you were saying is that I still am an entrepreneur. I was still willing to take risk. I was still willing to work hard. But the additional advantage I had at that stage of my life, my mid 40s, is that I'd already succeeded.
yes.
So I'd already taken that confidence that as an arrogant teenager, an arrogant 20-year-old, that I faked myself into having the confidence to go into these adventures. Well, now I'm in my mid 40s, my midlife, and I'd already proven that confidence in myself was validated. And so moving forward, even though I failed with the travel agency and I had a couple of their adventures, um, it was built on that confidence. Well, I've already done it. I
Hmm.
can do it again.
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly.
So I,
Yeah.
I think there's some advantages with age. You know, they call
Yeah.
it wisdom, that we
Yes.
get wiser with age. And I think that there's some truism there, that it's
Hmm.
wisdom, that's experience, it's confidence, and then it goes back to the personalities. You still have to be willing to work hard and be take risk.
That's right.
And but uh, if I may add one more thing, that the I think one of the important lessons I learned when I was young was that when there was a huge failure, when there was a huge loss, or you felt like the world is coming down on me and it's all going to end, you realize it's survivable.
Right.
Yeah, you might have a tough year or two or a tough couple months, but it's survivable as long as you have your faith and you keep moving forward. You know, I think the people that fail worse, the worst in life is the ones that give up. And I think that you have to, you know, I mean, I've had some horrendously difficult times, even in the 80s with the comedy clubs where I felt like, you know, overall it was a huge success. There were times where I don't know if I could open the door the next day, or I didn't have enough money to pay the staff and cover payroll. I mean, there's still challenges in any business and any entrepreneurship, day to day, month to month challenges. And I, going back to the wisdom of midlife, you learn that no matter how bad it seems, no matter how horrible and it feels like everything's coming down on you, it is survivable, and you just have to have faith.
Yeah, it is. But it's
I mean,
this.
you had I don't remember the name. Michelle maybe was a spiritual advisor
That's
that
right.
you had on your podcast a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
It is a lot of that what we in the sales industry called PMA, positive mental attitude.
Hmm.
You have to have that positive attitude even in the most difficult times. Nico, the sales guy who
I
your
think it's the
sales
same.
master was the same thing, is you have to have the ability and the positive attitude that I'm going to go in this door and make a sale. Now, you may or you may not, but you
Mhm.
have to have the confidence and the positive mental attitude that this is going to be my next sale, my next client, my next success.
I think there's a really fine line between that analogy of an entrepreneur and being a salesperson that way to somebody who's working 9 to 5, to them coming into a project or into an employment position or a new role or whatever campaign they're working on, taking it in the same light. Because the investment of time and energy is still there, that they still want to improve and succeed and have these enormous strides that they want. But perhaps the initiation, the uh, innate actions that are taken as an entrepreneur, because we know we need to do lots of things, isn't
Yes.
quite there, where it's possibly more niched when you work as an employee. Possibly. I mean, in my position as an employee way back when, I found it, I was innately multitask driven. It wasn't part of my role, but it was
No, but
just
you were compensating for your lack of control of your situation because you were a 9 to 5 employee on a salary or whatever, and they
right.
put you in this box and say, do this. But your
Exactly.
personality was saying, no, I need to do more. And so
Exactly.
you forced yourself to multitask to bring some sort of sense of success and commitment to yourself. Uh,
Just
but you had that in you. What I feel is sad is that there's a lot of human beings that go into these salary cubicle jobs,
Yeah.
and they have one little task, total up this column or do this, and they just go in and do it day after day after day. And yeah, they may get the paycheck at the end of the month. They may have the small pension when they retire, but all they've done is made somebody else richer. And it's their personal, how would you call it? Their aura,
Conviction. Yeah.
their life is almost crushed under that weight of
Yeah.
nothingness. It's a mind numbing task. And I think that people like you and I, and a lot of the people that you've interviewed, is that we're not going to accept that for
Right.
ourselves. We want to break out of the bubble. We've all had those jobs.
Hmm.
Even I've had to do some jobs that were, um, it was funny you asked what made me an entrepreneur, and I want to give the short answer. You become an entrepreneur when you're fired from every other job.
Exactly.
When you can't work for other
Exactly.
people, so you work for yourself. I can't tell you how many times I went to work for
Yeah.
somebody and I would go up to the boss and I go, you should do this and do that. You could do it better. They go, well, we appreciate your attitude. Get out of here.
Yep. I've been there,
Uh,
done that too. Uh-huh.
so when you work for yourself, it is very hard to get fired. But it is, I do wish that companies understood that they could be sucking the life out of their employees by not allowing them a certain
Yes.
amount of growth and freedom and opportunity. As you said, you took it upon yourself to multitask,
Mhm.
to make the job a challenge, to make it more
That's right.
of an investment of yourself to build your own
Yeah.
confidence. And that is not often offered. And a lot of people don't have that within themselves to do. So I wish companies opened up those opportunities. But again, everybody's different,
Yeah.
and you have to kind of go with the hand you're dealt with, I guess. But
Ultimately, absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I failed at all that. I was not a good employee. I always thought I could do things better. I always had my own opinion of what could or shouldn't be done.
Hmm.
And I found that owning my own businesses, then I could take that creative energy and that hard work ethic and build it to myself. That one other quick analogy that I mentioned in passing is that when you're a salaried cubicle employee, you may have a pension at the end, you get a paycheck every month that might be help you survive.
Yeah.
But an entrepreneur that's willing to work hard, build something based on their own energy and interest, and they have to care about it. I mean, I love the businesses I own. It's like being married. You have to commit and give everything to that business, which is difficult at times, and can be hard on an actual marriage. But the success is so much more broad
Yeah.
because in the case of my restaurants and art galleries and the comedy clubs, I worked hard. I built up sweat equity. And then when I sold them, I cashed out.
Right.
Employees that work 9 to 5 don't have that opportunity.
Right.
And now I failed as well. So there was times I didn't cash out. I took a big loss, but that's part of the risk reward of being an
Yeah.
entrepreneur.
Yeah. What do you feel is part of your calling, having taken this path, in looking and recognizing your own assets of skill set, be it your attributes? What do you feel is a calling in what you're here to do?
It's kind of interesting because I listened to the podcast with your spiritual advisor, and she was talking about knowing yourself and how to
Mhm.
build upon your own um, assets to go after something. I
Yeah.
have to kind of argue that in that a lot of times I had no idea what I was doing or how I was going to achieve my success. And as I mentioned much earlier, you have to kind of research what you're interested in. So if something catches your eye, a quick story. I was 16, 17. I was the night janitor of a sleazy motel, vacuuming and carpets and polishing floors and fixing TVs for hotel guests in the middle of the night. And I was underage, hiding out in the bar from the boss because, I was about to get fired. And I overheard two guys talking about making money on the weekends. So their side hustle was painting lines in a parking lot. And I listened, and then I went out and I thought, man, that's something I could do. Now, I knew nothing about the construction industry, but I went and talked to people that were already doing it. I talked to some pavers and some people that painted lines. They're called striping companies. And I found out what they charge and where they get their paint. And then I brought some friends in because I didn't have a truck to carry any equipment. So a buddy of mine had a van. Hey, you want a job? And then I didn't have any money for the paint equipment. And a friend of mine came into a $500 inheritance. And we took that $500 and bought our first paint machine.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I formed a company, and I was the salesman, and they were the grunts. We ended up having huge success for the next couple of years. We did every McDonald's in Northern California, all the Safeways. We even did an airport. But what was interesting, and the reason I brought up the story was I had no interest in owning a construction company. I had no history. I had no experience. So I had to do the research. I had to have the faith of myself to take that leap and start the company. I had to work hard, and I made mistakes, but I learned from those mistakes and kept going forward. And we ended up creating a company. It's called A&A Restripe. And as I mentioned, one of the original partners, the guy that owned the van, still has that company today, and his kids now run it. So it wasn't something, the point of the story was it wasn't something I had this lofty dream to do.
Right.
It was a necessity that in my mind, I didn't want to be a night janitor at this motel. I wanted to be in control of my future. I wanted to see if I could make money on my own hard efforts and hard work. And here I just overheard these two guys talking in a bar, and I took that idea, that lump of coal, and I used the pressure of my own hard work and energy, turned it into a little diamond, real teeny diamond of a business, and then went on to success in that business. Now, it wasn't enough of a business to support three growing guys. I sold out after 2.5 years, but it was still taking an idea, seeing it as an opportunity, that is, they say, the open window or open door, and being willing to jump through it. I didn't know what was going to happen, but
Right.
I was willing and I had the confidence in myself to give it a shot.
And I think often people will go through life that way, which is during these conversations on the podcast, but even myself and other people in my peripheral, we find that we may go through life and not recognize and maybe intend that I want to own a construction company or I want to own this very specific, but rather follow an innate wisdom, calling, direction,
And being
knowing,
able to spot opportunity, right? I mean,
which is,
a
which
lot
is
of people.
part of that, I believe, right?
Oh, it is. It is. A lot of people would have heard those two guys talking and go, well, there's a couple drunk guys BSing. So what? And to my 17-year-old mind, it's like, oh, they're making money on the weekends.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
it was the same as the comedy club. I was visiting as a tourist in Westwood, California, and I see this amazing entertainment format, and I go, wow, I'd love to be involved in that. How can I do it? Well, I'm not an entertainer. I didn't want to be a stand-up comic. I mean, some people think I'm funny, but I wasn't particularly funny at the time. I saw it as a business that could be something, and it turned out I was right. Now, on the funny part, I did end up emceeing all of my shows for 21 years, so I have more stage time than most entertainers, and I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot.
Wow, wow. It's impressive when we look at, in retrospect, of what we've been through in life and how there's a beautiful silver lining throughout all these experiences. And for you, I see it as the mastery of recognizing what an opportunity is, but also following through on big, bold, courageous choices and decisions that you want to make just because you want to do it.
It is, and it is a personality thing that was that came out of my early life's experience. But I'm very happily, in fact, we just celebrated 25 years of marriage to my bride,
Congrats.
and she is the exact opposite. She works for the federal government. She has a really amazing, interesting job. She's on the fringe of show businesses and in show business. Well, there's my brain.
In
She's in the
federal government? Hold on a
yeah,
second.
yeah. No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about myself again. She go, no surprise. No, she's on the fringe of law enforcement as an
Okay,
intelligence analyst
right.
and has a very interesting job. But it is something that has a lot of adventure, a lot of excitement, a lot of hard work, but it's not very risky in the sense that she goes to work and she gets a salary, and she's kind of comfortable with that. And she finds me interesting and exciting because I have that ability to take risk and go after things. Now, what was interesting though, as a happily married man, that once we were married, she would temper my crazy ideas,
Really?
right? I mean, there was lots of things I wanted to do, and she would go, "Well, why don't we do half of those?" Because she's more conservative and I'm a
Yes,
little more risky and crazy.
yes,
But
yes.
it has been really an exciting entrepreneurial life that's had a lot of failures and downsides, but a whole lot of successes. And as I alluded to very early on in this conversation, I always strive to have fun
Yeah,
because whether you win or lose, if you're having fun, your life has that extra value, that extra reason for being.
yeah.
Um, I've written a couple books. Oh, in fact, you had that author on who's done 50 books. I don't remember the name. Zara, Z-A, Zara, is that
Hmm.
right? Have
Financial.
written
Mhm.
50 books. And I go, man, now that's incredible. Now to me, that's awe-inspiring that she had that hard work ethic to have ideas that she wanted to share with the public and was able to do
Right.
it through publishing. For me, I want to give back to the public, but I do it through entertainment and producing shows. I still produce two or three large charity shows a year, and I have my podcast, which is stand-up comedy industry based, so I can keep my toes in the entertainment world because that was really where all the fun was. I went on and I own a large insurance brokerage, and I mentioned
Sure.
my travel agency and other career lines that I've dove into. But the stand-up comedy was the most fun, and so now that I'm semi-retired, I keep my took my interest in that and kept it going. And
Yeah,
for me, it was through a podcast
yeah,
and writing books.
yeah. What do you feel are some of the attributes that are key for you to get to where you are today? Knowingly or unknowingly, that you can reflect on, saying, these are the things that were really not special, but really part of my being in order for me to connect with this purpose of being good at sales, looking at opportunities and identifying them, and then actually taking action to it. What were they for you?
I think it was that connecting with other human beings, the customer service I mentioned earlier. When you own a restaurant, an art gallery, comedy clubs, an insurance brokerage, a construction company, a portable DJ, a travel agency, what is it that made me want to do those or to succeed or even fail in those, but what was my goal? What was my aspiration? And it was the interacting with the customers, the clients, that personal connection. Um, there was a time I actually worked for somebody, but I was independent. I was a fleet director for a Ford truck store, and I would go to companies and they would have problems and I would solve those problems. When had my insurance brokerage, I would go to companies and I'd say, what are your issues? What are your problems? What do you need to overcome? And as part of my customer service, and what made me feel good inside was that I was able to help these clients, these customers, and some of them turned into be friends. And that gave me a value aside from the financial,
Right.
that I took some
Right.
uh, honor. I don't know, that might be overstating, but I took some pride
Sure.
in being there for somebody. I couldn't always solve every problem, but
Yeah.
I was there to listen. I was there to offer advice or offer options and help them solve their problems. And that customer service was always something that I was not only good at, but I enjoyed. And I think that aside from all the fun and the risk and the entrepreneur stuff, that connecting with people and trying to help them was kind of that internal drive.
hmm Do you feel that there was an underlying intention behind this interaction and engagement and the enjoyment even for yourself? Was there another intention behind it, do you think? Not in a sneaky way or any way, but rather highlighting your craft, highlighting your mastery in customer service.
Well, for me, it was just the customer service and the interaction with the client or customer. However, I think as a capitalist and as an entrepreneur, it was always, it wasn't the forefront of my thinking, but I think it was always in the back of my mind that this is how you make money. that
Sure.
that that I was helping somebody because I just wanted to help them solve a problem. But I think in the back of my mind, well, that's how you make a living. You're
Right.
bringing answers to people that have questions, and there's a value in that.
Yep.
So even though that's not my main emotional reason for doing it, there was always a little bit of capitalism in the back of my brain saying, well, this is how you're going to solve your problems, which is
Right.
usually, with money and bills and all that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that sounds very veneer or shallow, but
Right.
and it was never in the forefront of my mind. I mean, when you're a salesman and you're cold calling, yeah, you want to make that sale, you want to build that business into something that makes you money. But going to the emotional part that you and I just discussed, where I really enjoyed helping people and solving problems for people, whether it was helping them find the right truck or making sure their business was insured properly, or when they had a loss. I mean, I had in the insurance business, I had people that had deaths in the family or fires or financial losses, and they could come to me and I could comfort them and help them through it. Now, like I said, there was probably somewhere in the back of my mind that, well, this is your job and this is how you make a living. But at the moment and emotionally, I was just feeling some pride in being able to help
Sure.
others.
Yeah.
That
And
sounds a little too deep for a fun guy. Sorry.
it's perfect. It's perfect because it ultimately that's it, right? We still want agency, we still seek emotional connection and support. And perhaps as entrepreneurs, we discount that because we're given the stereotype that we sit in a room all day and just sit at this computer and that becomes our community, if you will. To a certain degree, it is.
Well, but you're making a good point that I think entrepreneurs are seen as like CEOs, these people that sit up on their thrones and they make demands and tell people what to do, and they sit back and make the money. That was never what it was for me. The term entrepreneur meant that I was willing to take risk, and when I saw an opportunity, I took it, and I was willing to make that risk and do the hard work to try to make it succeed. And I understood that I could do all that hard work, make that financial investment, and still lose,
Yeah.
and be okay with that. Know that I would survive it emotionally and financially. So I wasn't some lofty guy that hung over and made decisions and told others what to do. I was in the trenches doing the work to
Yeah.
try to make my own success. And to me, that was the definition of an entrepreneur. But you're right, a lot of people think that we're just money people, and I think it goes much, much deeper.
It does. It
And
does.
I've never been rich. I mean, I've had money and I've been bankrupt a couple times. I mean, I think that any good entrepreneur has done both, made money and been broke. And I
Yeah,
think that's part of the adventure. You
it
know,
is.
I like to call these chapters of my life the adventures, because you don't know how it's going to turn out. You know, you jump in and you work hard and you cross your fingers, and it may work and it may not, but that's the adventure, you know, that's the excitement.
It is. And that's the driver for many entrepreneurs, I think, too.
Oh yeah. And again, to bring the conversation full circle, guess what? We have fun
That's right.
because we're doing something we care about, that we are emotionally tied to, that's exciting and it's different, and we want to learn and we want to work hard, and it's fun. I
Yeah.
think that's so important. Got to
It
have fun.
is. It is. It gets discounted real quick. It
Yeah,
get discounted real quick. So yeah,
it's
it
that's
is good.
that's sad but true, that a lot of people don't understand that it's okay to be happy. It's okay to find joy in what you're doing. Even
Yeah.
those people I was uh, joking about being downtrodden, being cubicle 9 to 5 workers. You can find the fun, you can find the joy if you're willing to break out of the common feelings, and be yourself, and find what's fun for you and what you're doing.
Yeah. And I do want to add a little asterisk here because I have recognized that there are people out in the world who do have 9 to 5 jobs, but should I say, and they are very content. They get the joy, they get the laughter, they get the fun, and they get all of what we are seeking, you and I, outside
Well, that
in
is
our
their
of our space, but they get it all in that space. So there are lots of people out there in the world who have that, and my hat goes off to them that they have that, which is great. However, but for
no.
me,
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. I didn't mean to sound like they were all, and
no, I
I
just
mean, I don't want to offend anybody. They're not losers. It's just a different type of living than you and I have done. But I absolutely agree. My wife loves what she does and works hard at it and gets emotional joy out of it, even though she's in a tough law enforcement thing, and it's a 9 to 5.
yeah,
She has a nice office. It's not a cubicle. But the point is that there are a lot of people that are content and happy with with what they're doing and the choices they've made. I don't
yeah,
want to take away from that. That's true.
sure,
There's a lot of value in that. If you're content and feel like you're making a difference and your life is fulfilled and you're having a little bit of fun, that's the secret. It
it
doesn't
is.
matter what it is, you know, whether you're making
Exactly.
money, a lot of money, or not a lot of money. It's not. That's interesting that we kind of skimmed over it earlier. A lot of people think that entrepreneurs are all rich, and that's far from the truth. We don't do it for the money. I think that's important to say again. We
Yeah,
don't
I agree.
open these businesses and work this hard just for the money. Yes, the money is the reward or the loss that you might take, but it's that excitement of and the creativity of taking nothing and making something. For me, I got so much joy in opening
Yeah.
a business that when I was flush with capital, I was opening a new business every year. And then
Mhm.
I'd put somebody else in charge to run it, and I'd go on and open my next adventure.
Nice.
You know, and that's crazy, but it was the excitement for me was creating the jobs and having the creative aspects of starting that particular company, whether it was an art gallery, a restaurant, a nightclub, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And uh, there's so much to be said for the satisfaction you give yourself when you can take advantage of your own creative juices and takes nothing and make it something. And then it benefits people because all those businesses that I started, I employed people.
Yeah.
You know, I had over 120 employees at one point. I was running 6, 7 different companies at one time, all different. I mean, I'm a little crazy. There was a very eclectic. But I would trust, you know, you have to trust people that you train. I would train somebody to see my vision and to run a company that I started, put them in charge, and that allowed me the freedom to go on to my next adventure.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So it's all part of the plan.
So what is your next adventure? Where are you going from here?
Well, did I mention that my wife has put a little bit of a thumb on my creative juices? Now that I'm
soon, still,
well,
did I say still?
She wants to make sure that we can get through our older years, and she feels like I may have done enough. She was so funny when I recently sold my last business, which was just December, and retired again. She said, "Okay, you do whatever you want to do, but no leases, no employees." You know, she's setting up some parameters. So it's okay. It just means a new challenge for me. So I'm working on things like you are through the internet, through my podcast. I created a comedy course online. I've written a book since then. And, you know, so I take those creative juices and those experiences and some of that wisdom from my past and try to pass it on and help others.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I'm excited to see how it's going to unfold and what it's going to unfold like, and maybe even what are the lessons that are going to show up in between that you're going to sit and marvel in of, am I doing this again? But it's still a little bit different. So I'm curious to see how that's all going to unfold for you. So I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. It's kind of a new adventure.
It is too. I love that. I love that. I love that. So I appreciate you sharing as we wrap up this beautiful conversation of you sharing your wisdom, your insight, and all of the adventures that you've lived and still yet to live, because there's still a lot of life left to live.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, you have to have the faith that there's another adventure in your future, something to live for, something to keep those creative juices going.
Exactly.
And for you, it's your podcast. I mean, look at the information and the wisdom that you're able to share through your podcast and bringing people on. And I love the title of your podcast, Master of the Craft, because of your craft, because that's so true that whatever job you're doing, if you master that craft, you're a success. And it doesn't mean financially or any other way. You're just a success because you've mastered what you care about, and that's so important. And by the way, you have great opening music on your podcast.
Thank you so much. My kudos and my heart goes out to Rebecca Everett, who made it for me. So we had a beautiful conversation and relationship to be able to do that. So if anybody needs music, Rebecca Everett.
There you go. Rebecca's the one to get a hold of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Out here in Toronto for sure.
Well, thanks for everything you're doing with your podcast. It's really a value to your listeners, and I am very proud and honored to be a guest on your show. You've had some very important, powerful thinkers on your show, and I'm just the fun guy.
Well, yeah, you're still a powerful thinker too, and I'm honored and grateful for you to share. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure. And ladies and gentlemen out there, keep listening to this podcast. Why? Because we're having fun.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Scott. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.